Harrison O'Kenny was a cook working on a tugboat. One fateful night, Harrison awoke needing to use the bathroom. Suddenly, the tugboat was hit with a large rogue wave and capsized. Shockingly, Harrison survived 2 days within the sunken boat. You will never believe how. Welcome to Survivor Archives. Harrison O'Kenny was a 29-year-old married man and lived in Warri, Nigeria. He worked as a cook on a tugboat in the southeast Atlantic Ocean in the Gulf of Guinea. This particular area is rich with petroleum, therefore many offshore oil rig drilling operations surround this African coast. The purpose of tugboats is to maneuver vessels by pushing or towing them. In the context of oil and gas operations, ocean tugboats are often used to assist vessels that are not self-propelled, like barges or oil platforms. On the 26th of May 2013, about 20 miles 32 kilometers off of Escravos, Nigeria, 3 tugboats performed this tension tow function on a Chevron oil tanker at a platform. One of these boats was the Jaskin 4, the boat Harrison was on. Just before 5 a.m, a large rogue wave capsized the Jaskin 4, which eventually settled 30 meters, 100 feet down on the seabed upside down. Now, in this part of the Gulf, there are ongoing problems with piracy. In fact, in 2013 alone, there were approximately 100 attempted sea hijackings. This meant that the 12-man crew on the Jaskin 4 had implemented a security protocol to lock the doors to their rooms when sleeping. So when the boat capsized, their escape was made more difficult. When the boat began to sink, Harrison was in the bathroom in his underwear. He could see the water coming in from under the door, so he rushed to open the bathroom door and was met with such a strong rush of water that he was unable to follow some of his crewmates who were trying to make their way towards the emergency hatch. As he held onto the door, he watched in horror as the surge of water overwhelmed his crewmates and swept them out of the boat into the raging sea. Suddenly, Harrison was being pushed by the water down a narrow hallway into another bathroom across an officer's cabin. Harrison managed to grab onto an overturned basin. As he clung onto this basin, he managed to keep his head above the rising water in this small 4-foot square bathroom. When the tugboat settled, an immediate rescue operation was launched by other boats and helicopters. A diving crew located the tugboat and marked the location with buoys. They banged on the hull of the boat and Harrison banged back, but they didn't hear him. The diving crew was not set up for a lengthy deep dive, so they called it off as they could not see any evidence of survivors. Poor Harrison spent the day in that small bathroom before eventually getting enough courage to leave the small air pocket he had. He swam within the pitch black water and made his way to the engineer's office. Here he found another air pocket that was 1.2 meters high, 4 feet. Now that he had air, he had to figure out how to stay warm. He only had his boxers on and feared he would face hypothermia. Harrison felt his way around the office and found some tools. He used these tools to strip off wall paneling and used a floating mattress to create a platform for him to sit on. Unfortunately, it could not hold his whole body, but it was enough to keep half his body above water and acted as a floating device he could lean on and conserve energy and minimize heat loss. Can you imagine how terrified he would have been, stuck in this cold, dark, wet space with no clue of how to escape without dying? Harrison reported that he was filled with fear and began to profusely pray to Jesus, pleading, crying, and begging to be rescued. He even made pacts with God, promising to never work on the sea again. The skin on Harrison's tongue began to peel, and he could smell the decomposing, rotting flesh of his crewmates. Every sound magnified in this small space. In particular, the sound of splashing fish nibbling on dead corpses of his crewmates. How awful. At this stage, 2 days had passed. Meanwhile, West African Ventures, the parent company of the Jaskin 4, had hired a deep sea salvage saturation diving team from DCN Global to retrieve the dead bodies. They certainly did not have any preconceived notions that it would be a rescue mission. 3 divers went into the water and located the boat. They spent 1 hour breaking through an external watertight door and then another metal door before getting into the sunken boat. The divers navigated their way through the murky water that was filled with floating furniture and equipment, not to mention that it was upside down. Whilst all this was happening, Harrison could hear noises like an anchor dropping and then hammering on the hull of the boat. He knew that divers had been sent, so he banged on the walls but was skeptical they heard him. Then Harrison saw the light from one of the divers' head torches, and before he could get to him, the diver had swam past. He began to panic, but then another diver appeared, and this time he entered the cabin. Harrison took a deep breath and entered the water. He extended his hand to the diver, and the diver latched onto it. All the while, the diver thought he found another corpse. The diver jolted in shock when Harrison squeezed his hand. The diver's supervisor was watching the entire exchange topside and yelled, "He's alive! He's alive!" This settled the diver, so he gave Harrison a pat on the back and a thumbs up. All 3 divers reported that they were absolutely amazed to find Harrison alive. One of them was quoted saying, "How it wasn't full of water is anyone's guess. I would say that someone was looking after him." To provide some context, most recreational divers only go as deep as 40 meters, 130 feet, and for 20 minutes at most. According to scientists, the air pocket in the tugboat formed because the boat was under pressure, and based on the size of the room Harrison was in, the compressed air would have lasted 2.5 days at most. Harrison had been trapped for approximately 60 hours. Talk about a close call. Being trapped by an air pocket underwater comes with significant dangers. Unfortunately, it would not be as simple as bringing Harrison to the surface and letting him go on his merry way. You see, as he breathed in the air from this air pocket, he was exhaling carbon dioxide, CO2, and CO2 can be fatal to humans. The divers quickly fitted Harrison with an oxygen mask and waited for instructions. Topside, the dive support crew consulted with medical experts and feared something called the bends. The bends is a decompression sickness and occurs when nitrogen bubbles form in the blood because of the change in pressure. The repercussions of this could be as minor as having joint pain and getting a rash to as major as paralysis, neurological issues, cardiac arrest, or even death. Now, you don't survive something like that only to die upon rescue. The dive support crew decided they would treat Harrison like they would treat any other diver who was at risk of DCS. So as Harrison got used to breathing oxygen through the mask, the divers fitted him with a harness and helmet and guided him out of the boat to a diving bell, which would take him up to the surface. Harrison finally arrived topside at approximately 7 p.m. on the 29th of May 2013. Harrison was disorientated and thought he had only been underwater for 12 hours. So when he was told it had been 2.5 days, he was flabbergasted. The crew moved Harrison from the diving bell into a decompression chamber, where he stayed for another 2.5 days. Can you imagine how freaked out he would have been by all this? What a brave man, and what a survivor. Sadly, of the 12 crew members of the Jaskin 4, divers recovered 10 bodies, with only 1 survivor, Harrison O'Kenny. Harrison eventually recovered from his harrowing experience and returned home. He felt an immense amount of survivor's guilt and suffers with PTSD and nightmares, as with many survivors before him. But his faith in God and the strength it provides him meant that he was able to live another day. Today, Harrison is grateful for the life he has with his wife and family and returned to a job as a cook on land. Thanks for watching. If you would like to hear more survival stories, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you're watching this on Facebook, please like, comment, share, and follow.